Hey, thanks for joining myself and Charu Thomas, CEO and founder of Ox. We're going to talk today in the context of ladies who launch and have a candid conversation about courage, community, and capital. I'm Meagan Bowman, founder and CEO of Stonehenge Technology Labs, here with the amazing Charu Thomas, founder and CEO of Ox, and we're just going to have a cool conversation. Charu, you are amazing. Tell us about Ox. Tell me and everybody who has seen you winning awards and kicking butt in pitch competitions. Tell us about Ox, the heart of what you've built, and why you get excited about it.
Absolutely, Megan. First of all, I have to say that I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here with you today. And it's great to meet you all if I haven't met you yet through the interwebs. My name is Charu Thomas, and I'm the founder and CEO at a company called Ox here locally in Northwest Arkansas. And at Ox, what we do is we build tools that enable stores to transform into micro and nano fulfillment centers through optimized pick from store operations. We're really focused on improving the fulfillment optimization process by empowering, engaging, and exciting the workforce. We're a venture-backed company. We've raised about $3.5 million to date from some of the best-in-class investors in the world, with LPs including the Bezos family, the former CEO of Kroger, the COO of Nasty Gal, et cetera. And we've been featured on best-in-class publications like Forbes, the Axios, and the New York Times. So really grateful for the opportunity to be here and share a little bit more about our journey, and very excited by what we've built so far and what we continue to develop. But Megan, you are also really incredibly awesome. I'd love to hear a little bit more about Stopwatch as well, deeper, before we dive right into some of the questions.
Yeah, it's so fun. Charu, if you're making retailers more efficient and effective with this new world of on-demand quick delivery, I would argue that we might be the other side of that coin, where we're trying to help the manufacturers who are pushing into the retailers to make better business decisions around the simple stuff like inventory, pricing, regionality, modality, those sorts of things that traditionally, early in retail history, Coca-Cola would just receive an order from Kroger, say, and they would just ship that order on a big old pallet, and Kroger would receive it and put it in. And similar to kind of the way you're working with the Krogers of the world to change the way they get things to consumers, we're working with the CPG companies of the world, changing the way they get things to the retailers so that that entire supply chain can just get smooth, more efficient, more effective, and that more people can eat things and buy things, at a lower cost.
That's absolutely excellent, Megan. I know that that's a really big challenge nowadays, especially with a lot of these smaller brands. I mean, how do you guys kind of see yourself in the marketplace overall in terms of, do you work with small suppliers typically, or medium size, or I'm just a little bit curious there too.
Yeah, no. Honestly, if you are a supplier that sells something through Amazon, Target, Walmart, PetSmart, one of the 102 different places that you can, list your product online or sell into a retailer, regional or national. So we work with everybody from, General Mills and Energizer down to, Zitsticka, which is more of a native brand. Really, the heart of what Stopwatch does is it empowers teams of cross-functional executives between, procurement and inventory and pricing and brand to all be looking at the same information and to be receiving the same signals given their particular position within the company. And so really what we look for, we call it a psychographic profile. So if a team's ready to really be thinking about the way they're moving their goods and bringing things to market, it doesn't matter if it's, a giant company or a really small startup. We love working with either. And Stopwatch, the platform, is so configurable that, it can be as big or as small as you want. I think our biggest, member group has like 300 users on it, and our smallest has 2. So it just depends on how you want to use it.
Wow, that's really awesome. That's really awesome. I guess when you think about Northwest Arkansas, we think that startups can contribute to our communities in this area?
So my family, we moved here 6 years ago to be near the most consumer packaged goods companies that we could be next to. So like, if you're going to go poor and like, bootstrap a company from the ground up, moving from Seattle to Northwest Arkansas to be near, hopefully, your potential users was just a no-brainer for us. So when we moved here, to us, it was all about being close to people who we hoped someday might use our software. In terms of what it builds for the Northwest Arkansas system, I mean, I just really love, we've got the big three here. We've got Walmart, JB Hunt and Tyson. And I love the University of Arkansas. I think there's really good fundamentals coming out of that area. And, I'm from Seattle and there's great stuff going on out there too. But there's something in the water here where from a supply chain kind of .NET framework, it's pretty buttoned up. And so, finding talent has been awesome. Yeah, I really enjoy it here. I mean, I can afford to try and build a business here, which is pretty awesome. I'm curious, do you have different thoughts, or what are your?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly really interesting to hear because I actually didn't really realize your background in Seattle, to be honest. And for me, it was a kind of similar story where I'm from Atlanta originally, grew up there, went to Georgia Tech, and really enjoyed that ecosystem a lot. So moving to Northwest Arkansas was incredibly scary to me at the time because I didn't have any family or friends or really knew much about the ecosystem. I kind of joke to people nowadays that I barely even knew where Arkansas was on a map, prior to moving, which is so crazy to think about. But I've been really blessed to meet some absolutely incredible people in this ecosystem and community. And I think that that's really differentiated what Northwest Arkansas has to offer compared to like a bigger city. Because I definitely think that while it is a smaller community, it's a lot more tight knit and supportive and kind, and always there for you. And I think that was really, really helpful for us. And I definitely agree with your point as well, Megan, about how retail and supply chain here is really unique. Like there are just some best in class people, especially in the fields that tend to come here and tend to be here and live here and make this place home. So that's also been a really great opportunity to kind of connect with that part of the community and ecosystem and learn a lot along the way as well. So I really enjoyed it as well. It's kind of cool to hear that we have kind of a similar sort of story almost, even though they're from different parts of the country and different backgrounds. So
yeah, it takes a lot of courage to just like up and move, right? Like, I'm curious, when you like told your friends and family in Atlanta, were they like, where's that? Or, like, what was the reaction?
Yeah, honestly, I think I was really lucky to have some really supportive friends and family around me, and I still am. And honestly, but from my perspective, I was honestly the most scared and like fearful about like what the possible effect is, because again, I didn't know anyone here and didn't know anything about the culture, like what it would really be like. So I was really pleasantly surprised and blown away by how kind and cohesive the community was. So.
That is really cool. So it's funny coming from Seattle from an Amazon background, saying that you're going to, move to Northwest Arkansas to work, kind of in Walmart's backyard. About 6 years ago, like Amazon was just not scared of Walmart and vice versa. Like, I mean, neither cared about each other. And so, as I was kind of leaving Seattle, people were always like, good luck, crazy person. Like, because at the time, for suppliers or vendors or manufacturers, Amazon was just now coming on the scene. And that was kind of the breakthrough of, any sort of e-commerce. And even at that time, people weren't buying, chips, trash bags, and toothpaste. They were buying like maybe a basketball hoop or something. And so to be like moving to like go sell chips, trash bags, and toothpaste in the middle of Northwest Arkansas in Walmart's backyard from Seattle was pretty much like, see you later. So when I got here, I had to learn a lot. I had to unlearn a lot of what I learned kind of in the Seattle Amazon culture, not in a bad way. Just very different kind of cultures, both very, very intense and very gifted in terms of how they go to market and execute their craft. But it was definitely a shock for me.
Interesting. Wow, that's really cool. When you say some of those cultural things, I'm just purely curious, but like, what are some of the cultural things that existed in Seattle that you don't necessarily find here and vice versa?
Good question. So The biggest difference that I learned when I first got here, and it's neither right nor wrong, it's just a very different, is that because Amazon's relationship with their suppliers is pretty much hands off the wheel. Like, we want you guys to pretty much run your business through our platform, and you better do it right, or else we're going to charge the crap out of you, right? Like, I mean, that's really there. And so, I remember early on, coming into Walmart and with Hallmark, I was actually invited to go to a buyer meeting and like meet with the buyer. And I didn't know how to do that because I'd always been pushing, product through, a hands off the wheel system. And I was really, really good at it. Well, I sit down with the layout center buyer and I throw up in the trash can because her pen is worth millions of dollars to Hallmark. And here I am, like, on my own kind of merit, have to like convince her to, place this product or whatever. And I just remember thinking, wow, these are both very hard things. Like, and I learned, one version of a hard thing, and it gave me a lot of respect for, the manufacturers that work kind of in the Walmart ecosystem and how they, their discipline and their craftedness. And I mean, it's a huge responsibility to be putting things on the shelf that go that mass market. And so I was just really, really impressed. I think the second thing that was really interesting for me was that, there's just a lot of competition. And so there's a lot more confidentiality. I think in the Seattle community, because Amazon really could care less, there was a lot more kind of open share. When I moved to Northwest Arkansas, there was a lot more, at least between the brands, there's just a lot of confidential kind of walls that go up, and Walmart needs those as well. And so I came in a little fast and loose, and it was taught pretty quickly, that in this culture, it's a little more tight, and it was a great thing to learn as well. I think both work. So.
But the first thing that comes to mind almost is like corporate kind of culture, almost, and it's really interesting to build a business in that type of environment, because, like, for instance, when we see people who even join our team from like more of those corporate environments, it's just such a black and white kind of experience. Like, building a tech company is very different than being, like being at a big corporation, and they just require different cultures and different dynamics to actually like work and operate. So it's been really, really interesting because I've seen the exact same thing. So
well, I'm curious. I'm going to ask you to build on that real quick. Tell me about the players, because you have an amazing staff. Tell me about the players the difference who come from more of like a startup background and who are transitioning out of like a large corporate. Because I know you pick up some great talent from JB Hunt, and I mean, there's just great players on your team. So what's the difference between big co and small co kind of acquisitions?
You know what? It's a really good question. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's great to kind of leverage people who have different backgrounds and different experiences, because I think that's what really makes us exceptional. We have an absolutely exceptional team, but we're so different and so varied in such a variety of different ways, whether it's, culturally or, from a gender perspective or sexuality or disability or, financial like there's just so many different things that differentiate ourselves, which is awesome, because I think that that's what really comes together to create what makes us really special, So I guess that's the first thing. But in terms of what I think the major differences between, kind of the corporate background and the startup background, I think they are just geared to value different things. It's almost like, like for instance, I think the fundamentals of culture and creating a culture is like having a value system that resonates with the people that you work with, and not everyone's going to align with that, but some people will, and they'll really align with it. And, those are the people that you want on the team, right? And so one of the interesting things I've noticed is a lot of people who come from that corporate background, they're really systematic.
Yeah.
They're really
which we need as founders, right?
Which we definitely need. Yes, it's so effective. And, so I really appreciate that. And they've learned a lot of those, like, I think, systems that create structure and create organization and can help them be effective, which is really awesome. So that's really awesome. The people who I think are more entrepreneurially driven and are more like in the startup phase, I think they value speed, they value big, like really big, and they value optimism, so I think that those are kind of the differences. Now, I think those are both really necessary to build a big business, because you can't do anything without a vision, but you also can't do anything without executing on the vision, so I think they're both really core to like what we do, and really important. But I've just noticed that really big difference in the culture and like value systems almost that underlie, and it makes sense. Like the reason why it happens makes total sense, because at a big company, the bigger job is to communicate with people and like get your point across. And you need like organization and structure to organize all that stuff that's happening. But at a small business, you have more autonomy.
Payroll.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, it's also that you are working with less people, so you don't need to go through as many decision-making things to get things done, so it's about how fast can we go, how big can we make it, and so it's just it's a really interesting mindset. I think that both of them are learned behaviors, though. You can learn one or the other, and it's not like you're in one forever, but I do think that they do provide different kind of value systems and like tactical behaviors that are really important either way. So
I hear you, and I think the mark of a good leader is exactly what you're saying, recognizing that tension that is so necessary for sustainable yet fast growth. It's kind of like and I agree. I'm curious, Charu, as a founding female in tech, and a woman of color, you are in like this much of a minority in terms of, so first of all, let me congratulate you. Like that's huge. You and I both know, and the numbers are kind of clear that, today females are receiving, roughly, less than 2% right now of all the venture capital, which is, you're healthily venture backed, Stopwatch is healthily venture backed. And so we're kind of in the minority here. And I'm curious, as a female person of color in tech, what has it been like for you?
Building a business is really, really hard. Just in general. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're coming from, what you do, it's really hard. And adding on top of that, these extra challenges of like, not having the easiest time fundraising or whatever they may be, it makes it just a lot harder, and so I think that that's like one of the fundamental things. But that being said, one of the things that's been super helpful for me with building our business, and I wouldn't say that I'm the biggest expert at it or I'm really good at this, but I think it's been super helpful is having a clear goal and a vision in mind. And even during those times that really are challenging and make you feel like you're not doing the right thing, remembering what that vision is and like remembering the people around you. And that just really centers me and grounds me a lot. So I think,
tell us that vision. I know it's going to be big. What is it?
Yeah, well, so I mean, one aspect of the vision is to enable stores to transform into these micro fulfillment centers, right? And building the technology, the systems to make sure that the associates in the process are as efficient, effective. I'll tell you a story. So for instance, we were in one of the retailers we work for, their stores, and we met an e-commerce manager. Her name's Stacy. Now, she's a single mom. She has 3 children, and her job is really hard. She goes to work from 5 a.m. She comes in at 5 a.m. Her role actually starts at 6, but she spends about an hour and a half sorting all the tasks, making sure that they're in the right order for her teammates. She's not paid for it. And then she works from about 5 to 3 p.m. She takes an hour break from 3 to 4, and then she goes from 4 to 9 to her job across the street at Target. So it's a really hard job. She's doing a lot. She's doing it 6 days a week. There's a lot of extra effort that she's putting into her job every single day that we could just take away. We could build her a tool that
and give her creative space back. That's what I get excited about. Yeah. I mean, obviously Stacey is a really bright, talented woman. And what's so exciting is, you shave 15, 20, 2 hours off of that like manual stuff, all of a sudden Stacy can become the CEO because she's got space, right? Very exciting.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's what motivates us to do what we do. And that's, I think one element of this greater vision that, I think it obviously continues to, iterate and evolve and get bigger, which is really exciting. So, but yeah, it's been really, really awesome. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity. So.
When you've been, and this is going to be uncomfortable and I'll answer it too, yeah. But I think it's important for people to know, and I'll go first. And this is not, one bad apple doesn't ruin the bunch, but I'm going to say 3 things that have been, said to me in fundraising. And again, this is not a he said, she said, or whatever, but what I think it does is it illustrates just the opportunity that we all have to, just talk to each other about it. Like, you can't change things unless you start talking about it, right? And like, I mean, I'd rather know if I'm doing something that either hurts somebody or, if nobody tells me, I'm going to keep doing it because it's a construct of my experience and what's worked for me. There's no reason to change unless somebody says, hey, that hurt, like, can we change that? And so I'm going to say 3 things, and they're not woe is me. They're really opportunity things. So 3 things that kind of I have on my notebook that I cannot wait to change. Is early on when we were raising our first round, I was told, and I get it because venture is all about de-risking your situation, but I was told that I probably needed a male co-founder to help de-risk the situation, that it just felt more stable. Okay. When I walked out, I thought, oh. And then I thought, well, okay, in their shoes, when they're looking at, all sorts of past data of, what the perfect, best case scenario of them making a ton of money off me, and all of their data says that, it's when there's a male involved, it was kind of a self-fulfilling, prophecy. And so, part of something that I get really excited about is to say, okay, the more females that are in the data sets going forward, that question isn't even going to be a question. I try to remove the emotion from the question, but truly, like, that person is asking that based on the data that he or she has, and we as women are just as guilty of it, right? And so as people like you and I kind of start busting through of those things, hopefully my daughters and granddaughters won't be asked that question because it would be a dumb question,
Right? Yeah. I mean, Megan, first of all, I have to say, I'm really sorry that happened because, I totally get where you're coming from. Unfortunately, definitely felt similar types of situations in the past, and it's not acceptable. You know what I mean? Like, at some level, like, there's some element of me that's like, well, that's not cool, because like in a different situation, if I was doing that to someone else, I don't think that I would be proud of myself, and so there's like that element of like, that's not cool, but it sucks that it happens, you know what I mean? And it is unfortunately a fact of life that, women do go through a lot more of that challenge. From my perspective, even, I'll give you an example kind of similar to yours, where we had an investor who was kind of trying to preempt a round of ours, and he was a well-respected investor. He was kind of giving us a bad terms, in my opinion. Like, he gave us half the valuation that we were probably supposed to be valued at. But he was in a different market, so there were possible other reasons for that, right? But there was one comment he made to me kind of towards the end where I was like, okay, I'm definitely not taking this deal. And he kind of said something along the lines of, if you were, or he was like, I don't think you're going to get a better deal than this because you're a woman, or something along those lines, right? Where it was like,
you can take this deal. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay, well, I'll just go prove you wrong. Right. But you're exactly right. Those things do unfortunately happen, and people do say things like that are, unfortunately true, but still unacceptable. Like, it doesn't mean that it's okay for them to say that or do that. And you're exactly right about, like, we should be talking about it and making it clear that that's not appropriate. But at the same time, we can't let it drag us down, and we have to be the people who will break the glass ceiling and make sure it doesn't happen in the future. So anyways, I guess
that's when you say, you know what, you will be a footnote in my book.
Right.
You know, like this like that. And what's really fun is, you know, for other entrepreneurs who are pursuing capital and, you know, mentorship and teamwork, there are so many things today that are growing that kind of counter that old school, that are very, very refreshing. So I'm curious to you, what have been some really, like, what have been some myth busters for you? Like, you know, like that's a, you know, that's like, and honestly, I'm sorry that happened. And, you know, very, very similar, you know, you're lucky to be working with me kind of thing. So flip it on its head. When have you worked with somebody who's like, no, I want you because you're different? Like, I'm literally placing my bet here because, you know, obviously, you know, apples to apples, you know, the concept, the business, everything is great, but I also believe you bring something special. Tell me about one of those.
That's an excellent question, Megan, and I have to say the same to you. But for me, you know, a couple of people that come to mind are one of my teammates, Tanner, first of all. Like, he was really, really important as we were raising capital, because we, you know, he always kind of tells a story about, you know, a sad moment in our journey where we had gotten rejected from something. And this, you know, this happens all the time. And it's right, where, you know, something doesn't work out, or something, you get rejected, or whatever it may be. Like, it happens all the time, even today. Like, things happen, you know, and it's just part of the process, right? So there was a moment in our journey where we had a failure, and I was really upset about it. I was crying at the airport. This was the first time Tanner had ever seen me cry, because it was something that I felt was so important, and it didn't work out like I expected it to. So I was just really upset about it. And I still am like that, where I'm like the type of person.
Absolutely.
I'm a pretty personal person, you know? So, but I think when he saw that, he really like noted, or like realized how committed I was to like seeing it through. And like, even in those moments of like sadness and disappointment, like, I would still stick with it, you know? So I think that he was kind of one of the first people to believe in me, like just me specifically, that truly like motivated me to be who I am and continue to motivate me to be who I am. And he's not the only one. I mean, there's so many different people that I can, you know, point out to, like that, my first advisor, our first board member, Mike, you know, our first company advisor, Brian, Mark, you know, like there's so many different people I feel like that I could just point to who believed in me as a person and gave me that confidence that I didn't necessarily have on my own. But Megan, I'm curious to hear about you. I know we have to jump in a minute, but I want to also hear your answer. Like, who were those types of people who gave you that motivation and that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very similar. Tanner sounds like an incredible person. I think, and you bring up a good point, and I'll echo that. It's when things aren't going right, or you've really messed up. You know, our founding team has been together for 4 years, and the amount of time that I've had to say, I'm sorry. I mean, this is 3 guys and me. They're all very heavily technically, you know, driven. I am not at anywhere near their level. And just like, you don't have to be good at that because we're good at that.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and I'm very emotional too, you know, I'll, you know, blow up because we, you know, something didn't go as planned, or we lost a particular lead, or, you know, something like that. And to them, they just say, but we're here because we're here for the journey. Like, you know, and I mean, you know, early days, pre-funding and pre-revenue, you know, I mean, we were sharing paychecks, and, you know, who needed to get, you know, groceries that week versus who needed to, you know, pay their rent versus, you know, I mean, we were really just like pretty committed to seeing this thing through. And I think that gave me a lot of confidence that no matter, especially early in the capital raise, when, you know, I mean, it took about a year, and I had a little notch. I think I had 863 no's. I kept little notches, and I just realized it was a numbers game. Like I needed to get a lot of no's in order to like figure out what my yes was, and my yeses became the best yeses I could have ever had. And so, you know, I think those are the types of things where, you know, having a few people externally who take a bet on you, and then also having, you know, the team that actually sees you working day in and day out, and, you know, there's just a really, I used to always tell my team, like the best feeling was coming back to the team and sharing bad news, because like, it was just kind of like, okay, well, what's next? Like there was just no, like, you know, we didn't skip a beat. So I think to your point, you know, Tanner sounds like a valuable partner, and we certainly have had our share of blessings, but I think truly it was, like you said, it was the team that just saw at my worst point where I think that they would probably run, you know, we actually just got stronger.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, this has been a really fun conversation. You know, community, capital, and courage are 3 C's that I know you're living every day. And I know that so many women, you know, whether you're starting a business in Northwest Arkansas or in California or in Haiti, are living these things. And so I know I speak for both of us, Charu, you know, women, men, whoever, if you need, you know, any sort of real-time coaching, please reach out. Time is really valuable. At the same time, like we can't build this village alone. So yeah.